I was the one running my father-in-law's company when everything unraveled. Hand over the passwords, accounts, and every document. Eleanor, my mother-in-law, snapped after his funeral. Pack your things and leave. Derek, my husband, added with a smirk. His mistress stood behind him, smug. All yours, I said evenly, sliding a folder across the table. The color drained from their faces as they opened it. My name is Rachel. I'm 33, and for the last 5 years, I kept my husband's family printing business afloat just outside Portland. This was never meant to be my career. I had been a web designer, freelancing, and enjoying the freedom of remote work. But when Derek's father passed away, I stepped in temporarily to steady the business. Temporary turned permanent. Derek became the figurehead, the smiling owner everyone saw. But I was the machine behind the curtain. Invoicing, emails, layout revisions, order systems, all of it. We didn't have the money to hire more staff. So I carried the load while Derek managed the machinery and deliveries. Eleanor, who lived in the apartment above the shop, contributed nothing but constant criticism. You sit in front of that screen all day. Doesn't look like real work, she sneered one afternoon while I finalized a corporate brochure. Maybe get a job where you actually do something. I swallowed my frustration. She couldn't grasp that my work was the reason clients stayed. She didn't know I had rebuilt their entire ordering process after her husband's death. Because it wasn't physical labor, she assumed it had no value. I let it go, out of respect for her late husband, the only one in that family who had ever respected me. Before he passed, he had pulled me aside and said quietly, Rachel, this company will need you. Derek can't do it alone. You may not be family by blood, but you're the one I trust. I held on to those words through every insult. Derek wasn't strong with contracts or computers, so I picked up the slack without complaint. I thought my loyalty would be recognized someday. It never was. After the funeral, Eleanor's criticisms grew sharper. Derek, once supportive, started parroting her. You know, he said one night in bed, I'm out there busting my ass with deliveries, and you're just typing away all day. Feels like I'm the only one working. My chest tightened. Do you think this business runs itself? I asked quietly. He shrugged. Didn't Melissa used to do that kind of thing before you? That was the first time I'd heard her name in years. Melissa, his childhood friend, briefly an employee before I came along. His father had despised her work ethic. She had been sloppy, careless, so bad at invoices he had to redo them himself. She quit before she was fired. Now she was back. At first, it was casual visits, dropping by to say hello. Then it was coffee chats in the office kitchen. Eleanor adored her. She's such a darling girl, she gushed. So helpful. So creative. Melissa couldn't even navigate our printing software. Yet somehow she was painted as a savior, while I was the problem. Derek grew distant. Late nights out. Drinks with clients that didn't exist. Eleanor and Melissa were constantly whispering together, stopping abruptly whenever I walked in. I didn't confront them. Instead, I channeled my frustration elsewhere into writing. I started an anonymous blog, The Invisible Partner. There I vented. Screenshots of ridiculous client requests. Photos of my cluttered desk at midnight. Stories of customers sending Comic Sans files and demanding luxury results. At first, it was therapy, but soon it caught fire. People shared it, commented, laughed in recognition. My follower count exploded, 50,000, then 200,000. Companies reached out for collaborations. Advertisers offered revenue. Suddenly, I had a 6-figure audience and a steady stream of money. And nobody knew it was me. Not Derek. Not Eleanor. Not Melissa. I didn't keep it a secret because I was ashamed. I kept it because it was finally mine. The one thing in years untouched by their judgment. Then came that Friday. The day began as usual. I was fixing a botched file for one of our most important clients, a medical journal needing emergency reprints. Fonts weren't outlined, colors were misset. I fixed everything, got approvals, skipped lunch to finish. Derek left at 3 p.m. for a beer with a supplier. Eleanor disappeared around the same time, dressed far too glamorously for a grocery run. At 6:30, the client called. Any chance you can deliver a sample tonight? We need approval by Sunday. Normally, that was Derek's job, but I didn't want to risk losing them. I'll drop it off myself, I said. I boxed the sample, crossed the river into the city, and hand-delivered it. The client was thrilled. That should have been the end of the night, but I decided to reward myself with a drink before heading home. As I pulled into a spot near a downtown bar, I noticed a trio walking down the sidewalk. A man and two women, arm in arm, laughing. I froze. The man's build, the jacket, Derek. The woman clinging to his arm, Melissa. And walking beside them, radiant and smug, Eleanor. I ducked down in my car, heart hammering. They didn't see me. They walked past, laughing like a family, like I was already erased. I followed their path with my eyes until they stepped into a high-end steakhouse. Not some casual pub. This was leather booths and $80 entrees. Derek held the door like a gentleman. Eleanor tossed her hair back, beaming. Melissa pressed closer to Derek's side. My hands went cold around the steering wheel. They hadn't even tried to hide it. They had already replaced me. I sat there in the dark, coffee cooling in my cup holder, wondering when exactly my life had stopped being mine, and realizing with a sick twist in my stomach that maybe it had already been stolen long ago. That night, I didn't sleep. I pulled into the driveway and didn't step out right away. My hand stayed locked around the steering wheel, the leather warm beneath my palms. For 10 minutes, I just sat there, frozen, watching the night through the windshield. The image looped over and over in my mind, Melissa, her arm tucked neatly into Derek's like she claimed him long ago, and Eleanor beside them, glowing with triumph. Not guilt, not shame. Triumph. The world hadn't simply tilted. It had broken silently in that moment, and yet no tears came. No shouting, no collapse. Just clarity. The same way I always manage things, by making a plan. By 2 a.m, a suitcase sat zipped by the door. My laptop, drives, and every backup of the company's critical records were already tucked in the trunk of my car. I used my personal card to book movers for 9 sharp the next morning. No delays, no risks. When I finally lay down at 5, I didn't even undress. My eyes traced the ceiling lines until dawn dragged me into the illusion of routine. They came strolling in late morning. Ran into Melissa downtown. Eleanor announced, tossing her purse onto the counter like it was her stage. We had the best night. Derek trailed behind her, stretching and yawning. Didn't realize Portland still had decent steak, he said, like he was reminiscing with friends instead of twisting the knife. They weren't even pretending anymore. They wanted me to see. I poured coffee, carried it past them, and said nothing. For the next 48 hours, I became the ghost of normalcy. Emails answered. Invoices filed. Layouts finished. I even forced a smile when Eleanor suggested, oh so casually, that maybe I should consider getting a real job. The boxes I had labeled with my maiden name were collected right on schedule, carted directly to my parents' house. By Thursday morning, every piece of my old life was already gone. That afternoon, Eleanor cornered me in the office kitchen. Melissa mentioned something interesting, she said, stirring her tea with slow little swirls. Like how strange it is that we've never seen any financial paperwork from you. Or how convenient it is that you've been handling Dad's bank accounts alone since he died. I stared at her. You think I've been hiding money? Well, Melissa's voice cut in from the doorway. It certainly sounds that way. That evening, Derek brought it up at dinner, his fork clinking against the plate while his eyes stayed on his phone. You've been keeping things from us. There has to be life insurance. Savings. Something. There isn't, I said flatly. Everything your father left went to pay off last year's debts. Melissa disagrees, Derek said. She didn't even know your father, I shot back. She's known us since we were kids. Eleanor snapped, folding her arms across her chest. And there it was, the alliance in full view. Melissa wasn't just Derek's mistress now. She had taken my place in the family circle. If that's what you believe, I said, calm and even, then there's nothing left to discuss. There is, Derek said, finally lifting his eyes. I want a divorce. You'll pack your things and leave, and you'll hand over the company accounts. Passwords, banking records, everything. Eleanor added, leaning forward like she was sealing a deal. I let the silence hang before nodding once. Fine. They didn't expect me to fold so easily. No anger, no tears, no pleading, just surrender. It rattled them. What they couldn't see was that I'd already slipped out of the battlefield days ago. The toothbrush, the earrings my grandmother left me, the laptop, everything gone. Even my email rerouted and bank alerts redirected. To them, I was still the quiet, obedient wife. But that woman no longer existed. The next morning, Derek's email arrived. Subject line: divorce papers and finalization meeting. Melissa would be there as witness. Of course she would. I arrived at the shop 10 minutes early. The printers hummed faintly in standby mode. Melissa sat at the desk, phone in one hand, a glass of something expensive in the other. She didn't bother to stand. Rachel, she said, flat and clipped. Melissa. Silence swelled between us, heavy with a history neither of us was willing to name. Eleanor and Derek came in moments later. Derek carried a folder under his arm. Eleanor wore the kind of smirk people practice in mirrors. Let's get this over with, Derek said, dropping the folder onto the desk and sliding it toward me. Sign, then hand over the accounts, the cards, the logins, everything. No apology? I asked softly. For what? Eleanor scoffed. For letting you stay in this family longer than you should have. Melissa laughed under her breath. I opened the folder. Derek's signature was already stamped across the pages. The terms were standard: division of debts and assets, custody of nothing. I signed without hesitation, pushed the folder back across the table. Good, Derek said briskly. Now the accounts. I reached into my tote and drew out a black envelope. Everything you asked for. The latest statements, access codes, operating records. He snatched it, and Eleanor leaned close as he unfolded the first sheet. Melissa came around the desk, her eyes gleaming. Then all three of them froze. What is this? Melissa muttered, her brows tightening. Derek flipped the page, faster now. Eleanor leaned in closer. Confusion spread across their faces. It's from this week, I said evenly. No, Melissa snapped. No, that balance can't be right. There must be another account. Page after page. Nothing changed. Finally, Melissa reached the last sheet. Her hand trembled as her eyes landed on the final number. 28, she whispered. 94, I corrected, my voice steady. Derek's face drained of color. What the hell is this? His voice cracked. Where's the rest? Where's the inheritance? The life insurance? The savings? Gone, I said simply. Spent. Mostly on truck repairs, lease payments, payroll, utilities, and your luxuries. That's impossible, Eleanor spat. We've seen the invoices. There's good money coming in every month. There was, I replied. But you burned through it. Both of you. While I kept the business afloat, you bought $300 boots and $90 gin. And Derek, I let my gaze linger. You drained more on dinners and hotels than the printers did on ink. Melissa's mouth opened, then snapped shut. Her eyes flickered to Derek, to Eleanor, then back to the numbers in front of her. And in that silence, the truth finally landed. They had nothing left. Nothing at all. I slid a manila folder across the table. The sound of it hitting the wood was sharper than I intended, but maybe that was the point. Melissa's face twitched like I'd tossed a grenade instead of paper. Inside were neatly stacked pages. Loan repayment schedules, receipts pulled directly from my personal accounts, and ledgers carefully marked to spotlight every time I'd quietly covered Derek and Eleanor's financial blunders. I've been propping up this business with my own money, I said evenly, because I believed in it. Because your father asked me to keep it alive. Derek's eyes narrowed. What money? You don't even have another job. I leaned back. I run a blog. What started as a small venting outlet now has over 1.2 million subscribers, steady ad revenue, and a book deal under review. For the last 18 months, I've been moving nearly $6,000 a month from my account into this business just to keep it afloat. Melissa's mouth fell open. That's a joke, right? It isn't, I replied. And since those transfers were loans, not gifts, this company owes me over $80,000 in outstanding personal debt. All logged, all legal. Derek stared at the documents like they were written in code. he couldn't decipher. Eleanor, always so sharp-tongued, sat down slowly, color draining from her face. "I'm not your wife anymore," I said. "I'm your creditor, and you will repay me." "With what?" Derek snapped. "We don't even have payroll covered." "Not my problem anymore." Melissa laughed, harsh and bitter. "You're leaving him with a collapsing business, a mountain of debt, and pocket change to his name." She turned to Derek, her tone sharp. "You told me this would be simple. You said she was just some tech girl hiding behind a laptop. She's been running everything while you two were blind with arrogance." Eleanor opened her mouth, but no words came. Melissa turned back to me, eyes narrowing. "You're really not going to let them off the hook, are you?" "I already have," I said, rising, "by walking away. And you can keep him." I left with my head high. 3 days later, I signed an exclusivity agreement with one of the biggest print-on-demand firms in the Pacific Northwest. They'd followed my blog for months, admired my tone, my audience reach, and my insights. They hired me as a design consultant and digital strategist. The same week, my attorney delivered formal repayment terms to Derek and Eleanor, itemized logs, receipts, and a warning. Failure to comply would result in legal action and seizure of assets. They never responded. Word spread quickly. Within a month, more than 70% of the clients I had personally worked with canceled their contracts with Derek's shop and sought me out directly. I hadn't approached them. They followed the trail themselves. Derek couldn't troubleshoot formatting issues. Eleanor didn't even know how to open a PDF. 6 weeks later, I launched my own boutique design firm. Just 2 reliable freelancers, a print broker, and a clean digital platform. No storefront required. Clients loved the simplicity. I named it Reclaim Studio. 2 months later, the doorbell rang while I was reviewing a university project at my parents' home. My father answered, then called me to the porch. There they were, Derek in a wrinkled shirt, Eleanor looking as if she'd aged a decade. Derek dropped to his knees on the step. "I was wrong," he rasped. "I was stupid. Melissa filled my head with lies. Please, Rachel, come back. Help us." Eleanor bowed low beside him. "We didn't know what we had. We're sorry. Please, just come home." Behind me, my mother appeared silently with a broom in hand. She didn't say a word, but her stance was clear. "You are not welcome here." I stared at them both. Empty. Detached. "Go ask Melissa." "Oh, wait. She's not answering your calls anymore, is she?" They flinched. "I kept this business alive while you mocked me," I said quietly. "You chose to side with someone who wanted to see me erased. And now you're begging." "Please," Derek whispered. I took a breath, stepped back, and shut the door. My parents sprinkled salt across the porch, not from superstition, but for closure. 2 months later, I got a call from a bankruptcy attorney. "Rachel," he said, "I've been retained by a small print shop owned by your former in-laws. They're under significant financial strain. Your name appears frequently in their debt records. Before we liquidate, would you be interested in acquiring the company?" I blinked. "Acquire it? For a few thousand. Equipment is dated. Clients have left. But it still holds sentimental value." That night, I visited the cemetery. I sat cross-legged beside my late father-in-law's grave, a bouquet resting against the stone. "I tried," I said softly. "I really did. But your son and your wife couldn't get out of their own way." I opened the proposal on my phone. They want me to buy the company back. To salvage it. To put my name on the papers this time. A breeze shifted the leaves overhead. I could build it up again. Hire real staff. Maybe even use it as a satellite line. And maybe, just maybe, bring Derek back as a worker. No authority. Just labor. The trees stilled, air heavy. I smirked. "Yeah, didn't think you'd like that either." Back home, I updated my blog with a new post. "When your ex tries to return the business he torched to the wife he once called a leech." The comments exploded within minutes. I closed my laptop, leaned back, and let the silence wash over me. For the first time in years, I was completely, irreversibly free.